Manana si Zeus, colleagues, Imina 35 na legislature in Guam is called to order. At this time, I'm going to acknowledge the acting majority leader, Senator Marsh Tachino. You are recognized.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker. Notwithstanding the House rules, I move to adopt today's legislative session agenda dated August 10th, 2020.
On that motion, without any objections, motion carries. At this time, I'd ask that Senator Mary Torres, can you please lead us in prayer this morning? Sidus Masi. Please to rise.
Ginaani Tata, Ilahinia Deni Spiritu Santo. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for the privilege to work together as a lawmaking body. As we gather today to begin our duty to deliberate Bill number 282-35, the Appropriations Act for the Operations of the Government of Guam, may service to others above self be our guiding mission. It is written in 2 Peter 1-5, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness, knowledge, and to knowledge, self-control, and to self-control, perseverance. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Santa Maria, our patron saint of Guam, be ever by our side during these upcoming days. Si Zeus and Gwenegui Maria Burha Gracia, si Zeus Gaigi Zahagu. Matuna hao entretoros ifa malawan, za matuna ifinanagumo as Jesus. Santa Maria nanan Zeus, tazuzuti ham ni manisaw, pagod zani oren finatay mami. Amen. Ginaani Tata Ilahinia, Deni Spiritu Santo.
Si Zeus Masi, Senator Torres, at this time, I would like Senator Regine Biscoli to please recognize the recipient of a Milad and Mastakuluna sacrificial. Put forward.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. On behalf of a grateful island and country, we honor Mess Attendant Second Class, World War II, Vicente Gogui Meno, and the family of Mess Attendant Second Class Vicente Gogui Meno for making the ultimate sacrifice in service and defense of our island and country.
Sidus Masi, Senator Lee, and if you can please also lead us in recitation of the Inafresi.
Inafresi, ginini mastakulu, ginasoku, imastakulum gikurasonhu, zani masfigu, nani nasinyahu, hu ufresin maisuzu, harabai pratehi, zani fendi, ihinengi, ikutura, ilingwahi, iairi, ihanum, zani tanu samoru. Ni irin shakur iretsugin nazduas tata, esti hua fitma gihilui Biblia, zani banderahu, I banderan guahan.
Sidus Masi, Senator Lee. And at this time, for the singing of the Guam hymn in Chamorro and the singing of the national anthem, I would like the gentlemen members of this body to kindly lead us in singing them. Jesus Masi. Please be seated. At this time, colleagues, I would ask that Madam Clerk Hadzi Mangagi Guni put for vote. Roll call.
Senator Castro, Senator Lee, Senator Marsh Titano, Senator Moylan, Senator Munya, Speaker Munya Barnes,
Mananasi Zeus Gagea.
Vice Speaker Nelson, Senator Perez, Senator Rangel, Senator San Augustine, Senator Shelton, Senator Taitagui,
Here.
Senator Pito Terlahi, Senator Therese Terlahi, Senator Torres.
Kakitu.
Madam Speaker, there is a quorum.
Si Zeus Masi, Madam Clerk. At this time, I will recognize the Majority Leader. Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Suduas Maasi, Madam Speaker. I move to approve the Legislative Journal dated July 8th, 2020, subject to corrections.
On the motion to approve the Legislative Journal dated July 8th, 2020, subject to corrections, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Again, Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Suduas Maasi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are communications and petitions. I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On that motion, colleagues, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, you are still recognized.
Madam Speaker, there are messages from E. Magahagan Guahan. I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On the motion that messages of Imagahagan Guahan be appended to today's session journal, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, you're still recognized.
Suduas Maasi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are reports of standing committees. I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On that motion that reports of standing committees be appended to today's journal, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, I'm still going to recognize you.
Madam Speaker, there are no reports of select committees.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, I move that bills introduced, bills number 378-35LS through 380-35LS and 381-35COR through 390-35COR, and resolutions introduced, resolutions number 340-35LS through 350-35LS and 351-35COR through 364-35COR be deemed to have been given their first reading.
On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, you are still recognized.
Gahulu, Madam Speaker, I move to excuse senators not present for today's legislative session.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. We do have a full quorum. Everybody is on. Thank you very much. I will go ahead and note for the record, colleagues, that Assistant Majority Leader, you're still recognized on resolutions.
Suduas Maasi, Madam Speaker. I move that all congratulatory, commendatory, and condolence resolutions introduced today and for the remainder of this legislative session be considered first read and adopted to allow the Legislative Council to make technical corrections and to add all senators as co-sponsors.
On that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, Motion carries. Colleagues, we are on legislative concurrence. Madam Clerk? Colleagues, I will now recognize the Oversight Chair on OFB, Senator Joe San Agustin. Anansi Zulish, you are recognized at this time, sir.
Madam Speaker, I move to resolve to the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of deliberating and addressing matters on Bill number 282-35 LS as substituted by the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, introduced by the Committee on Rules by request of the Magahaga Guam and the Governor of Guam in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the Governor of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2021, making other appropriation and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provision, and that I chair the Committee of the Whole and invite the following panel guests. We have the Office of Finance and Budget folks, and also BBMR and DOA, unless any other panel is requested by this body.
On that motion, thank you, Senator San Agustin. On that motion, are there any objections? Seeing or hearing none, motion carries. I'm just going to take a 1-minute recess so that we can have everybody set up for the Committee of the Whole. We are in recess.
Good morning, colleagues. The Committee of the Whole is called to order. We have invited a panel guests. We have the Office of Finance and Budget, Steve Guerrero, Llewellyn Cherlai, and Mr. Joe Cabana, and also Vanessa Valencia behind me. We've also invited the Office of the Department of Administration and the BBMR, but we have been advised this morning that due to medical reasons, the contact tracing, BBMR has basically been shut down. So we will not get any attendees from BBMR. That being said, I'd ask the panel to please rise and Sergeant Arms, if you could swear in the Office of Finance and Budget personnel. Thank you, sir. My colleagues, before we begin onto the budget, I'm going to ask the Director of the Office of Finance and Budget to make a presentation on how the budget was derived, how the numbers came to be. And I think after that presentation, we'll begin with questions from my colleagues from the body, and we'll begin with Senator Clint Rigel, who's my Vice Chair, and then we'll proceed through the body, and then we'll get into the budget. I'm hoping still that folks from downtown will still show up, because there's been numbers floating all over the place, exactly what they would like, but until they show up, I don't have those numbers to justify any of their numbers. Okay, we'll start with the first one to raise their hand. Senator Therese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just, a couple housekeeping matters. So, yes, I think we should hear a plan as to when they might participate, and if DOA is not affected, if they could participate right now. I mean, that type of thing. If we
Yes,
should know. The other one is, I just want to ensure that this budget bill is a new version. It's been significantly remodeled. And I just want to make sure this is, I think it's been posted on the website, so it's available, but, you know, we didn't have a public hearing on this new version, so I just would ask that we proceed slowly so that we can
Yes.
adequately consider, especially the new provisions that are in here.
Yes, and DOA was invited, Mr. Byrne, and he's working his way. He asked for a larger social distancing, and we provided that up here. And as soon as he does show up, he'll probably come after lunch, looking at the time.
I mean, but the problem, I guess, who are we communicating with? Can we just have some concrete, like, who's going to answer for their non-appearance or this kind of thing? Because, yeah.
I will follow up with their chief of staff, and if need be, somebody downtown needs to show up. Needs to be able to justify if they're going to support these numbers or not.
Yes.
Or at least justify any increase.
Right. Well, significantly, the revenues are different from the
Yes.
budget submitted by the governor. So this is, I think it's fair that we need to be able to ask them questions. Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
and that's why the director will present how the budget was formulated, and then I think a lot of your answers may be answered. Senator Shelton, do you have something before I move to Senator Tello?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if we could have BBMR join us virtually, if that's possible. We did it several months ago when we were in the Committee of the Whole for another bill, when we had the congressman join us in session. If that's a possibility, if we can explore that with BBMR and with our team here, if we can
All right.
have them and not waste any time.
Okay. Senator Tello, you had a question?
Mr.
Before we
Chair,
begin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm starting to hear there's a consensus here with regards to the importance of having BBMR here. I share the same sentiments of having it virtually. It can be done. If we can do that, we don't necessarily have to have a video, but as long as we have audio and to hear our, any questions we have as we move forward. I mean, taking nothing away from OFB and all their research, I'd like to hear that as well as we accumulate. But I think, Mr. Chair, the pace on this bill, because it's really unprecedented where we are today, right now, with this pandemic and having to deal with less revenues. So I too share the same sentiments of my previous colleagues that mentioned, and would like to see this happen and ensure that we get all our answers.
Understood. So noted. Senator Moylan, and then followed by Senator Torres. Senator Moylan, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe you mentioned it was medical reasons, and am I to assume that the Department of Public Health has told BBMR that their office has a positive case of COVID?
No, I've been advised that there was one positive, so they've taken all the precautionary steps to shut it down until they find out the results from their contact tracing, which is a very positive move on their part. Unfortunately, it's during our session.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chair. We must take our public health as the most important. But as our colleagues have mentioned, if the BBMR director is not available, well, this is the executive budget that is being reviewed with our Office of Finance and Budget here. If the director's not available, then I kindly request that the governor come explain the budget for us, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Senator Torres, you have a question, ma'am, before we start?
Yes, could we also invite the Chief Fiscal Advisor, Ms. Bertha Duenas, to provide some
I will
info as
extend
well?
that invitation, ma'am.
Thank you.
Senator Wu, did you, same? For Bertha
I just want to
Duenas?
second that. I know in the prior administration, they had a senior advisor for fiscal affairs, so Senator Torres' request is.
All right, we will. Senator Sabina Paris.
Yes, could we also invite economists to talk about projections? Because my concern is that, with the revenue projections that we have, it may not be accurate considering the drop in revenues that we're seeing and the closure of businesses.
Okay, so we have Ms. Bertha Duenas, who put that request in, and you wanted the economists. Who specifically are you asking for?
Maybe
Mr.
Gary
Hiles?
Hiles,
Gary
yes.
Hiles?
Yes, thank you.
Is there any other requests? And the only reason I'm asking is I hate for the director to start, and then we're still waiting for folks to show up, and then we can wrap it up and start up all one time with a virtue of Mr. Carlson or anybody down from the administration, and tie everybody in and all come in and we start one time, so that we're not asking the director a question when others are presenting. We just flow. Any objection to that? Madam Vice Speaker.
No, Mr. Chair, no objection. I would like to move forward with your recommendation. It would behoove us to ensure that all parties that have a stake in this bill is present. And so really before OFB gives their presentation, so that these individuals who have submitted the budget with us and the budget has changed, they can see the presentation of OFB, and so that we can all be on the same page as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, then, and you're asking for Senator Castro, you want a Department of Revenue and Tax present?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Anybody who's part of the fiscal team who can answer questions relative to the revenues,
Understood.
relative to the economy. I mean, anybody who, as somebody mentioned, has a stake or is in a position of authority to speak as a subject matter expert on some of these things.
Okay, so my colleagues, we have Ms. Bertha Duenas, we have Gary Hiles, we have Daphne Shimizu, Revenue and Tax. We're looking at Lester Carlson, as much as possible, virtual, Zoom. We'll get him to Zoom in. I like to see his face, even if it's through the camera. Well, BBMR is Lester Carlson, so that's what we call him, because they shut down the whole office. Bertha Duenas is the financial advisor. I've got her. She's the first one on the list, ma'am. Who else did you?
Mr. Chair, unless you find it sufficient that any of those people can speak to the military construction projects, I know there's usually a build-up advisor, and a big part of the budget anticipates that MilCon will continue and infuse a lot of capital, so we like to kind of revisit that as well, at least for me.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that would be Gita, that oversees these contracts, I believe. So Gita may be a
Okay.
person.
Senator Moylan, and then we wrap it up. Okay, so we don't keep on, we're not bringing the whole administration down here, folks. Let's be reasonable. Only certain people play a role on the whole government. There's probably only 4 or 5 of them. They all support each other, but not 10 people. Senator Moylan?
Mr. Chair, again, if the BBM director is not available or Bertha is not available, I kindly request the governor report on her budget bill.
Yes, I understood that. I'll be communicating that with the chief of staff. Senator Clint, my vice chair. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, your proposed budget is about 50 million less than the governor's proposed budget. Is that correct? And if so, it's really up to the governor's office to justify their increase. So if they don't want to show up, we can just pass the budget with a lower amount than they're asking for.
Understood. Colleagues, it's 11:30. I have the staff communicate with the following folks we have identified. That being said, well, this is a long recess, but we'll go ahead and recess because we like to have all the parties here, so nobody's taking a shot during lunch listening to folks. And like the vice speaker said, it's always best that everybody be here. One shot, all one time. So that being said, we will recess until 2 o'clock. And we'll try to get all the folks here, and we'll start at 2 o'clock, and we'll just go for it from there. Madam Vice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make that motion, but before I do, it's been history that we've observed that BBMR feels that they don't have to be present when we're discussing budget. So there's many times that we've brought in the instance of subpoena. And so if this is going to be the way that we move forward because BBMR is not able to be present and we don't have the resources to really review these budgets, then I would recommend that route. In the meantime, if you are coordinating and you are getting no response between now and 1400. So with that being said, Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we recess till 1400.
All right, thank you. We will recess to 1400.